Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to episode, what are we at, 52 of the South Star Classroom.
Let's
Every
do it.
Friday coming at you, 3 p.m. Pacific time, 6 p.m. East Coast time. Glad to be here with two co-hosts and a very special guest, which we'll introduce here in a second. Make sure if you're watching this now live, make sure one thing that you can do to support the show by being here. Number one, contributing to the conversation on whatever platform you're watching on, Facebook or YouTube, as well as Twitter. And make sure that you like and share this podcast with your network so we can help to spread the good word about the South Star Classroom. We bring you generally a weekly roundup of news every Friday. And, we try and keep our finger on the pulse just around things that are happening in the education space, primarily focused on what's happening in our schools, any kind of schools, public schools, charter schools or public schools, private schools, home schools, and the impact for Black and brown kids and their families. That's why we're here. That's why we're here. So my name is David Castillo, one of the co-hosts. And before we get into any of the content, let's just do a quick check-in across the board with the two co-hosts as well as our special guest, and then we'll hop into it. So let's save the gravy for Mr. Ankrum, and we'll go over to Omar. How are you doing in Texas, sir?
Omar Suave. What's up, Omar Suave?
Yeah, man. What up, man? Everyone always talking about that hair, man. Listen, man. My hair is frizzy because I am not in Texas. I am in Florida. And I want to report to everybody right now that in Florida, you can get a alcoholic Mountain Dew. That's right. As if 24 power-packed ounces, Ray, wasn't enough of Mountain Dew. Now in Florida, you can get it as a malt liquor.
Wow.
I'm having it. It's based on a dare.
No sugar?
I may or may not live to the end of the show. It's no sugar. No sugar.
Oh, wow. What?
All the Dew.
Let's go.
No sugar.
That's wild,
But
man.
all the hard liquor. And it's got this eagle here.
Just American Eagle of Freedom.
That's the most
insult.
That's the most Florida shit ever. It's so Florida.
It's not quite Florida yet. What I also got here, ladies and gentlemen, if you're from Texas, you may recognize this shape. This is the shape of a chaw or a dipper, as you will, in the Texas colloquialism. Tobacco that you dip. These are coffee dippers. So they're little pouches of straight coffee caffeine. Only in Florida. So if the Mountain Dew ain't enough for you, you can dip on this here coffee.
I mean, do you do it like?
And that is my report from Florida. And
Omar,
it's not just that I'm doing both of these.
Do you do it like Dippo?
Yes.
You put it under your gums?
That's right.
You put it behind your ear, wherever.
Wherever it works, man. And by the end of the show, I may or may not be eaten by an alligator. So it's a triple entendre of the Florida. And that's what's going on here. I drove my compadre from El Paso all the way to Florida to make sure that he was safe. He got here safe with his family who's moving to Florida. And I found a bunch of Florida products and sampling the life that is Florida. What do you think about them Floridas, Ray?
Well, hopefully you don't sample any of that racism down there.
Well, I'm in South Florida, and it turns out the saying in Florida is the further north you go, the more southern it gets.
Uh-oh.
There you go.
So we shall see. We shall see.
Yeah,
man.
Florida's
that's
trip,
my
man.
update.
Yeah.
That's
all right.
That's a good update.
Be safe. And if you stay up too late, put a lock on your door. We don't need you wandering out into the Everglades at midnight after drinking that thing that you're drinking and seriously getting eaten by an alligator. We don't need that.
My goodness, man.
That's
I don't know how I'm going to top
Cole.
that. I don't know how I'm topping that. I don't know if I should try. I will say I'm very happy to see my fellas, man, and very, very busy week, but productive week. Currently in New Orleans right now at the Essence Festival. We had that documentary that Chris, myself, and a bunch of other people that some of you all know. It's doing really well. We did a showing at the House of Blues last night, and it was really dope because as soon as we finished, Ashanti was in the main room doing a pop-up concert. So we got to go there and see Ashanti,
Nice.
who just happens to just get more gorgeous by the years. She's Asian backwards and she looks incredible.
Incredible.
Very, 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 very true. And then and thank you all for the love and support in our group chat around the EALA 2022 champions. I lost, but I appreciate the love that y'all gave to your favorite loser. So, but Dina Simmons won for her organization. I think she gets like 35 grand, and she also gets there's like a kind of a fellowship thing. I think the runner-ups, we get like 5,000 to our orgs, and there's some cohort stuff they're gonna do with all of us or whatever. But if I had to lose, this does not mean people that's better to lose to. And also, man, it's just been such a weird time in these education Twitter and social media streets that I usually like divest from. Like I actually didn't know what was going on until I saw some stuff in my 8 Black Hands Slack group, and then I went over there and just saw craziness. And it's so crazy because y'all know, like 2 weeks ago, somebody put my name in an academic article, an academic journal article next to Howard Fuller and saying we were like these king privatizers, which is so crazy to me. So I'm doing very well, but I want to take the time before we throw it to Ray to just say on this podcast right now with David, Omar, and Ray, you have three men of color that have started, ran, and have incredible results of educating our kids and our babies. So Ray said something about this earlier, not to steal his thunder, but like I always say, check our jackets. I am with three incredible educators that have done this work, that have done it in some of the toughest places to do it. I mean, what's hard? What's tougher than New York? What's tougher than Texas? What's tougher than California? So it's my honor and pleasure to be with three, just school leaders and operators that have just done an amazing job, gotten their renewals, gotten the things that they needed, and served people. So I wanted to take that time to honor the three of you in lieu of all this crazy, super hyper political stuff. And this is Omar's. David, you hosted, but it's old show because Omar been waiting to go in on the right wing. And so I think that the show you set up today will be a whole bunch of Kobe to Shaq alley-oops for Omar. So
yeah. I'm just gonna put out some matches and some lighter fluid, and then I'm gonna step back. Yeah.
It's Omar and Ray show today, baby. We just get to enjoy.
All right.
Man,
thank you, Dr. Cole. Mr. Ankrum, thank you for joining us today.
No problem, man. Hey, listen, I am not a guest on this show because I've been on more than once, and so I don't need any introductions. These folks know who I am.
They know who you are.
I'm hearing about a group chat. Why am I not in this group chat? Like, why?
Because you're not on the show every week.
Yeah,
we could add you.
If I was in the group chat, then maybe I would be on the show every week, right? but listen,
what's happening in your world, sir?
Bro, it's amazing to be in community with y'all. I put out. So David, you're familiar with New York landscape because you're pretty bi-coastal in terms of like the charter landscape. And so one of the things that we were seeing, and this is our second year of high school. And so one of the things that I'm seeing is that folks don't put out their region scores, right? And so you have like this region's catchment, right? To where when I was coming up, 65, you had to have 65 or higher in order to pass a class. Now they put all these mechanisms in place in order for you to like go as far down as 55 and still pass a regions test, right? And so recently I released a whole slew of data of how our kids performed across the gambit in their subject areas, right? And I only used 65 and higher as the benchmark of who passed and who didn't, right? And we had some pretty good results. Contrary to the belief that COVID learning loss was going to kick these kids' butt, it kind of reversed it and reversed that narrative, and they were performing at or higher than the students were prior to COVID. So I just want to give a shout out to my kids at the Riverhead Charter School. If I move to the side, RCS is in the back. Shout out to my kids for doing what they needed to do in terms of performing on high stakes tests. Right, they didn't run away from it. They challenged it. It was some circumstances that we couldn't control in our building. We didn't really have space. That's worth talking about, but still they kicked ass. So thank you guys for asking for the check-in.
And shout out to you for doing something that not enough of us do, and that's being upfront and honest about your data. You know, whether it's good, then you celebrate, and if it's not good, then you have clear work to do. But the important point here is like you're putting it out there to actually, I mean, at a very basic level, to demonstrate to the public that you are actually doing something positive with the money that you receive. You don't take that money for granted. You don't take the funding for granted, and you're demonstrating to your community that your children are learning, you know, unfortunately, many times under less than ideal circumstances, right?
Absolutely.
And that's really important. So many people, they hide the data, they won't disaggregate the data, they will make excuses for the data, right? You know, even get into the level of like this, like election fraud, and it's the fake votes, or something happened during testing administration. I don't know, a bird flew over our school, distracted all the kids. They're all far below basic, you know.
Yeah.
I'm like, you know, just put it out there and put it on your website, share it with your community. I think that's the best practice, and for leaders like you and for leaders like us, at the end of the day, it holds us accountable, right?
Yeah. And 70% of our school is Latino students, right? And so
There you go.
a lot of folks don't know that. They like, oh, well, raise a black guy, so I assume that the majority of his students are black, but nah, they're not. And what I've seen from Latino community is that, you know, they get behind folks that are authentic, they get behind folks that are transparent, and those parents are revolutionary in terms of like, you know, if you call and you identify a problem, they're gonna solve that problem, because you know a lot of folks in the Latino community really take the opportunity for their kids to be in school and for their kids to be educated very seriously, right? And we can learn a lot. We can learn a lot from you guys, and me as a leader, I can learn from you guys as well, because you guys, you know, you got it on Smash. So let's go. Let's talk about it.
Facts. Yeah, test scores are not the end all be all, but they're an important part of the mosaic that makes up the picture or the painting of what a good quality school is, right? It's definitely an important part, along with a whole bunch of other indicators. So congratulations to you and your community for that work, and keep shouting it out, you know, keep calling people out, calling people in, making sure that, you know, it feels like there were many years where the accountability was like this bad word, this negative word, and people didn't understand it. And it's like, we've run schools, we've operated in schools, and we believe in it. So, you know, folks got to listen.
And the funny thing is,
one more thing New York is doing. One more thing New York is doing, right? Which I got an email about it, and I was super stoked about it, right? So usually the 3 to 8 testing, right? 3 to 8 ELA and math testing, they would put that data out like late August or whatever, right? Like right before you get back to school. So you really couldn't do much with the data in terms of like setting up your tier learning or setting up your interventions prior to school happening. But this year, in the beginning of August, they're giving you this data. So they have heard the feedback from everybody in terms of like, hey, let's get this data out so that, you know, schools can do something with it. So shout out to the Board of Regents for making this happen. And we'll have that data at the beginning of August in order to do something with it.
Yep. And this is not a tangent. This is really important stuff. So I want to just say a couple more comments on this. So I noticed that when you put out, you know, those comments on your social media, I said, well, that means they've got some of their data back already, right? We used to have to wait until like October of the next school year. And I just also saw something on social media around a release of Texas STAR results. Since I don't know if the Texas tests have come out, so it seems like in a couple of areas in a couple of states, the state education agencies are actually doing what they should be doing and getting this data turned around so people can actually like use it, right?
Yeah.
Same in Texas.
That's the idea, man.
Yeah,
that's the same, man. It's basically like, what can we do with this? In fact, Texas is trying to do. I don't know if I've got a crystal ball or something, but like I say things and then things just kind of magically happen. I was like, you know, Texas should move more.
It's the jet black hair, brother. It's your jet black hair. The world just listens to you, B.
I mean, is that what's going on, man? I don't know, man, because the people listening to you right now, they're all going to be out there with
Your
some
hair-
hard-ass Mountain Dew, and I don't
Your
recommend
hair
it.
gets more luscious just every episode.
Yeah.
Pete. Whether you in Europe, Texas, or in Florida.
It's crazy. You know, some I mean,
Just-
one
it
other
gets-
reflection is normally Omar is like, I'm noticing your posture. Sometimes your posture normally is more like front and center, like shoulders up, but
Mhm.
you've got this like Southern Florida, like Scarface
know.
leaning back kind of vibe going to you right now. So I don't know what's going on the table in front of you. I don't know what's happening around you, but I just wanted to offer that reflection.
Well, David, first you get the money, and then you get the power.
Where's Manolo, B? Where's
There you go,
Manolo,
there you go,
son?
there you go.
And it's so funny. Like, so
Man,
earlier,
he's-
Ray was on this Wire energy, like energy from the Wire, and today you are like Tony Montana. And I don't know what's happening between Ray and O, but we need all this energy for these topics because the right wing is wilding and they coming for our
man.
people. And you got some really dope articles that you pulled up, David. So why don't we hop into those? Because
Let's do that.
Our other brother's been getting attacked, and I want to make sure, like, because this is not happening in the silo, it's not happening in isolation. And the only person that I know that might get attacked more than a Chris or a Ray is David Castillo. David be on the union be coming for David all the time. And David, you have stood your ground since the day I met you, and you have been there. So I think it's gonna be a good episode.
Yeah, so let's get into it. So I think starting with the larger setting, you know, all of us have worked in schools. You know, Ray, Omar, and myself, we've led schools, and we understand that you know schools are not islands unto themselves. Like they're part of a local ecosystem, they're part of a state ecosystem, they're part of a national ecosystem, and they're impacted by everything that's happening. So schools are not immune from politics. They're actually intertwined into the political world and political life and political discourse. And so, you know, for the work that we do at the South Star Classroom, and I know for the work that you all doing at 8 Black Hands, it's like if you're a school leader, if you're a teacher, you're working in schools, you know, your job is right in front of you to support your community, support your school, support your teachers, your children. But you also have to be aware of the political dynamics, because when they come through hard and fast, and you have to understand you know, how these things work. And so today we are going to talk about politics and how they, we're now seeing very clear manifestations of how this political pendulum swing is impacting education. And then we will get to, you know, the good stuff around what's happened over the last couple of days. But on this show, the way we put the show together again is we look over headlines and we see what's happening. And, you know, there's obviously been a lot of activity at the Supreme Court. There's always activity in Texas, and there's always activity in Florida. So we were reviewing and just looking over a couple of articles to discuss today. And I think we'll do that very quickly and have a short discussion, but then we'll tie it into, see if we can tie it into this broader push, which is coming out of this, you know, this rise of like right-wing activism, so-called conservative activism. Most of it tends to be, you know, white activism, making people feel uncomfortable for the things that we say, for the things that we point out, talking about racism, making people feel uncomfortable. And so let's get into it. So there was 3 topics that we were going to talk about, and I'll go over them very quickly. State Board of Education in Texas, right, is fielding proposals to update the state's public school social studies curriculum. Texas, one of the largest states, maybe the largest, so many kids, they have a great impact around textbook publishing and what goes into the textbooks, and that gets filtered out to the smaller states, right? And so make a long story short, you know, they're actually entertaining the idea of removing the word slavery as it relates to, you know, history of the United States of America, and instead using the term involuntary relocation. I mean, I'm just going to like pause right there. This is to see how crazy and wild that is, that they're actually having these conversations, you know, in public, transparent about it, because these are public entities. Let's see. The board, with unanimous consent, directed the work group to revisit that specific language. Kevin Ellis, chair of the State Board of Education, said in a statement issued late Thursday, which was yesterday. So this is fresh, right? Let's put a pin in that. That's Texas. Now let's move to there's a Slate article about prayer in schools. And, you know, long story short, we've all heard, I think this came out earlier this week, Supreme Court decision coming down 6-3, essentially supporting the right of staff and students to pray in public schools, right?
Just to clarify, white.
Yeah. Well, okay. Expand on that. Tell me more.
The ruling was for white Anglo-Saxon Christians to be able to pray, not Muslims. And you try that and see how fast that.
There you go. Because I mean, that's actually the case. Was it was a high school football coach, right? And he was he's Christian and in a you know, predominantly white school, and so that's the framing of it, right? But yeah, I hear you, Ray. It's like, you think, okay, what time is it? It's the prayer time for Muslims. We're going to put down our rugs and we're going to pray in the middle of the football field. How do people respond to that, right? Yeah. I mean, religion is religion, right? I mean, there's all kinds of religions, but we're essentially talking about marrying, you know, or a strengthening of government and religion, but not just all religion and freedom of religion, but, you know, Christianity, right? What I like to call Christian fundamentalism. That's number 2. It's coming out of the Supreme Court. And then number 3, so it's actually quite a busy week in education news. Is this, and I'm definitely a supporter of school choice. I'm not a supporter of scorched earth school choice. You know, without.
Can you clarify that? What is that? What is that?
Yeah, I will. Yeah. So like, so let me give you a quick example of what happened. So we're talking about Arizona, and Arizona is probably now, if you're looking at a school choice dashboard, is like leading the country in terms of allowing families to take public money and either attend a district school, charter school, and or private school. Many of those being religious, right? And so this is like the kind of fervor that's happening around right now. A lot of people pushing like fund students, not systems. Yep, I get it, kind of like it. However, we've worked in schools and we know what happens when you kind of unleash, you know, the power of choice without having systems in place to ensure equity, to ensure that, you know, families that are furthest from opportunity are not left behind. Right. And so the way that I'll explain this to you is a very popular podcaster, comedian guy, Steven Crowder. We all know who he is. And if you don't look it up. You know, he puts out a tweet today. Give me one good argument against school choice policies like the one in Arizona. Is there a single one? So I respond, let's see. There are no protections for students with disabilities in private schools. Number 2, there's generally a lack of accountability for private schools, right? Number 3, you're talking about school choice, you're talking about transportation. There's nothing written in here around a system for transporting kids to and from. So you're talking about like equity, who has the ability to move children around to different areas. Some people can't move. Number 4, there are no systems or suggestions for a system for a common academic metric. Number 5, there's a lack of constitutional protections for children in private schools, right?
Okay.
I mean, there's a lot more. I had to
Oh no! Continue, brother.
Continue.
I stopped right there. The mailman came at the time. I had to open the door and then went back to the tweet. So that's my thing. It's like that's in my mind, scorched earth school choice really it will continue to provide opportunity for those that are actually closest to it and not furthest from it, unless you have a larger and broader umbrella system or mechanism to make sure that those initial 5 points are being addressed. Does that answer, Mr. Ray?
Absolutely, 100%.
He was ready for you, Ray. And I think, and also as we go into this and you open up this discussion, Ray, David, I'd be remiss. I want to say welcome and thank you to all of our people that have joined us. So we see you, Jessica. We see you, Toya. We see you, to just Gene, Vicky. But also I want to say what's up to our Roku family. We've been on the Roku network now for about 3 weeks. That family is growing. So BS3 network, we appreciate you all support. We see you all in the comments. Thank you for the group text and all that stuff and checking us out.
Can you explain that, bro? I'm late here. I don't know.
Oh yeah, so we have done a deal with Roku. We will be hosted. We're on actual TV on Roku's television channel, BS3, with a good friend of mine. And so not only do we have this online audience, we get shown on TV throughout the week. And we've loved it, and we've added an educational component to what started out more as a sports network, but now has different shows. So Ben, I know you probably in the comments. That's the CEO of BS3 and a very good friend of mine. Thank you for your support. And I see him right there. Thank you for your support, man. And to our Roku family, if you ever want to jump online and be in this, or you can send us messages because you might not be seeing it live, just let us know, and we'll make sure to include you in the show the way that we do our Facebook and YouTube family.
And you just said all that. You think I'm not gonna be here every Friday?
You are more than welcome. And for the folks that are listening, the South Star Classroom we are a consultancy first, and we are a podcast second, meaning that if you want these smart brothers, you want these intelligent people that have led schools, that have led community engagement, that have done all this type of stuff, go ahead and reach out. We'll work with you. We'll work with your budgets to bring equity, access, and high quality to your schools. And we are in love with the project that we have now. So I love working with you fellas, but germane to our work is this very issue that you just raised, David. You just talked about how these people are running rampant, and do not lump us in with these people. Where do you want us to go with this part, David? So that part's crazy.
Yeah. So, I mean, I kind of laid out the couple of pieces that we were considering for the show today. We could talk about any one of those, or we can just talk about and transition to the larger, broader issue around, these are the same forces at work, the same people. We don't have to talk about names, or we can, organizations, that is, pulling for quote unquote more religious freedom in our schools, more school choice for like classical education, or whatever they might be. And they're not the voices that are speaking. These voices are not speaking on behalf of the voices and communities that we typically, talk about on this show. And so recently, that's earlier this week. Some of this stuff does play out in the real world, in social media. There are real impacts, and there were some pretty nasty attacks coming from certain individuals and organizations that support probably, 3 or maybe 4 out of 4 of those articles or that thinking that we just talked about. And number one, I think the first one that we saw was they'd come after Chris Stewart, who's obviously part of the A Black Hands podcast. They put out a hit piece on him, right? I mean, somebody took the time to put out a nasty, not in the terms of the content, but like there was just nothing there. It's like, this is not going to stick to the wall, right? Went through his, old tax filings and some stuff he said on a podcast 100 years ago, and it's like, who cares, right? Who cares, right? And so there was that piece, and then they came after you, Ray, right? And we all got stuff in our past. I've got stuff in my past. We all do. This one is interesting. I've been attacked, and now we can pivot, because most of the attacks that I've experienced online and in the real world have come from like the lefty commies, the union people, right? They've come after me. They've looked at my tax documents. They've doxed me. They've done all that stuff. But this was not coming from the left, right? This is coming from like the far right, and it's these people have pretty powerful platforms, and they're using them right now. And so I'm glad that you all didn't back down. You're talking about it. We're talking about it in our show, And so I'll leave it there. I'll hand it over to Ray, and then we'll go to Omar just to see what your thoughts are on this and what we can do to work together to help support one another.
Yeah.
And so, Ray, what happened? Yeah, just lay it out. You don't have to go into names or whatnot, but what happened?
Yeah. So, man, so they put out a hit piece on Chris, man. So as I'm going through this thing or whatever, you got white folks, predominantly white folks, that are saying, hey, to this black guy, you're a racist, right? And then they're delving in, they're talking, they use this as an opportunity to use the word nigga, because that's what they do, right? Like, that's the magic word. That's the magic word for them. Like anytime they can have an opportunity to be like, oh, he said nigger, right? Like, they go all in for that, right? And so they use opportunities for him to, like, in which he critiqued the black community. And so what folks need to know is that, as black men, we are the number one critiquers of our community, right? And we do it out of love. We do it because we want our communities to be the best that they can be, right? And I'm sure it's the same in the Latino community. I'm sure it's the same in Asian communities. I'm sure it's the same across the gamut in all communities, right? And so we're going to have these really deep and rich conversations about how people are showing up. So if you're showing up in a manner in which we don't think is conducive to lift the race, then we're going to call your ass out. And we have every right to be able to do that. But what you don't have the right to do as a white person is to critique or criticize how we call out people in our race. And that's what they did, right? And so as I went to the board of Ed Breitbart, is what I'll call them, right? The education wing of Breitbart. There's not a black person in sight, not a person of color in sight on their board that makes up their staff or whatever, like nothing, right? And so want to be clear that, mediocre white men that are out in the Twitter sphere, in the universe, right? Just because you're married to a black woman doesn't give you the entitlement of being able to show up to the picnic, right? Like, we got to talk about that shit and we got to name it, right? Like, you still have to get an invite to the picnic. You don't automatically get a +1 to everybody's picnic, right? And so, ended up so I ended up sending out a tweet in defense of my man, because that's my man, and I don't know him to be a racist. Like, I know him to be a person that will put anybody on, right? Black, white, whatever. There have been times where me and Charles have both said, this person is crazy, you're out of your mind for putting this person on, and like, it has come back to like bite him in the ass for putting him on, but he never not did it, right? And these are white people, black people, whatever, right? Like, if you got a product that Chris feels is going to enhance the learning of our community, he's going to put you on. That's just who he is, right? And so I tweeted out something in defense, and then the next thing you know, my tweet got screenshotted, and like, I got an army of people like coming for me, right? And so I had some litigation in 2016, and let's just be clear about what this litigation was. It's about 21 white teachers that sued me, right? A class action lawsuit. They were no longer working at the school because, my idea of putting the best people forth in terms of providing a good education for black and brown people didn't really center around them. And so, it ended up being a class action lawsuit. And you know how it is with litigation. Like, they'll throw anything against the wall to see if it sticks. So I got called everything under the sun except what my mama named me, right? And shit threw me into a deep depression, right? Because like, here it is, I'm feeling all this stuff and I'm by myself. But here I get a DM from one Christopher Stewart, right? And he's like, bro, you're not in this alone. This has happened to other people. Like, don't worry about it. I got you. The next thing you know, I'm getting text messages from Charles Cole. I'm getting text messages from Sharif El-Mekki. And that was the birth of the 8 Black Hands podcast. And so, what they did to Chris kind of reignited, it kind of reignited us in terms of like what we're supposed to do here and how we're supposed to show up. Charles is trying to quit education every other week, and he was hyped today, right? So yeah, it was good, man. And then I actually a lot of things that people misunderstand, right? So I'm not a coffee drinker, right? So like, I invited this guy. I'm like, yo, hey, let's have coffee. That was like code from I'm gonna smack the shit out of you when I see you, right? And so last night I prayed on it, man. I'm just like, yo, I can't. There's no way I would be a sucker if I let this guy get his shit off on me and I didn't respond to him, right? And my mama ain't raised no sucker, so I had to go hard, right? And so yeah, I just picked apart his mediocre career, right? And here we are today.
Yeah, and I'll call it out without naming any names, but I mean, I think the org that we're talking about is Chalkboard Review, right?
Yeah.
And it's interesting. They have a couple of tenets about what they stand for. It's like parents deserve a clear window into education. Cool.
Yeah.
Teachers aren't heroes; they're just people. I don't know. I don't know about that. I mean, I've had some teachers that have truly been heroic, and I've had some that were just people, and I've had some that
were villains.
Shouldn't been teaching. That shouldn't have been teaching, right? So it's not that simple. Number 3 of their kind of their tenets is no one is special because of their skin color. I'm like, and this is mainly an organization, not mainly. I just looked at their webpage. It's all white
100%.
folks.
100%.
I had to put on my shades when I was looking at their webpage because it's like it was very bright coming at me. And I'm like, you actually don't get to say that. You can talk about the white race if you want, but you definitely cannot tell other people, especially if you're a white-led and white organization, that other people cannot consider themselves special. And you can also not say that we cannot critique other groups of races based on their historical activities. Maybe not you as a person, but as the white race, absolutely, we're going to call it out. And then, I'll leave it there, but that's kind of the organization that we're talking about. And it feels like they're just trying to reshape this narrative. And in the process, pushing Christianity into our schools, privatizing education, and also whitewashing history. So,
and I think the way that you laid that out, I am so excited for this guy to have a comment because I feel like we put a muzzle onto one Omar Yanar every other week, and he has been chomping at the bit to go at the right because he gets attacked in this in a different type of way. And Omar, what I will say to you is, don't worry about the sponsors today, brother. You get to have your moment and do your thing.
That's a bold statement, man. I don't know.
I'm gonna
know.
the whole screen.
I'm gonna put my shades on for this.
Oh,
here we go.
Yeah.
Oh shit! All right. Look, I've got some initial on this. Just some initial thoughts,
some initial thoughts. Okay.
How things are going. But look, I want to careen what we were talking about last week into this week, so that folks kind of understand where, in my opinion, this is going. So, as we talk frequently, we are studiers of politics. We are studiers of political science and public policy. For folks who may not know, a very, very long time ago, there was a bright young man named Tom DeLay from Texas. Tom DeLay, with a group of other Texans in the Republican Party, decided that the demographics of this country are changing radically. And boy, oh boy, the demographics that are changing aren't really voting for the grand old party. So we need to come up with a system to continue to win votes because we're not going to win these elections. And they came up with a brilliant system in the 1990s to gerrymander Texas and a ton of other states vis-a-vis the state legislatures to ensure we're going to win these elections. And there's nothing you can do about it. So we're going to just change the rules and change the districts because we see this coming 30 years away. And we're going to win this. And by the way, they saw it coming 30 years away because that stuff was happening in the 1990s. Everyone was paying attention to Georgia in this last election and the fact that Georgia turned blue and the fact that President Trump was calling the Secretary of State to be hey, find me 11,000 votes. What is going on is that you are watching in real time the fact that those policies 30 years ago, the Democrats are now trying to address. They're trying to address voting rights. They're trying to address the fact that districts have been gerrymandering. And now in 2020, we're trying to play defense. If you're a Democrat, trying to play defense to fix that. You all got a front row seat to see how the GOP is trying to absolutely brainwash and take over children's minds in order to win elections, because it's not just about gerrymandering votes. It's like, where can we get these kids early? Like, as if introducing crack cocaine wasn't enough to low-income neighborhoods. Thank you, the GOP and the CIA. It's now, let's indoctrinate kids. Let's go ahead and deal with education while they're susceptible, while they're 12 years old, 13 years old, 14 years old, and make up some batshit crazy stuff like involuntary relocation. What the fuck is that? Like, can anyone tell me, like, involuntary relocation means to me, like, you're staying in a roadway inn, and that roadway inn is about to get condemned because there's a meth lab in the next room. Oh. And you're like, And the manager comes in, it's like, listen, I need you to stay at the Days Inn because this here roadway inn is about to get exploded. Yeah. But then changing the vernacular in Texas, which will then proliferate throughout the rest of the country, is a very sharp way, ladies and gentlemen, for them to say, we figured out what we're going to do in the next 30 years. Because ultimately, if we're not going to win this fight at the ballot box, we're going to win this fight ideologically in the classroom. We're going to switch the Latino population to essentially the Republican Party. And we're going to do so by convincing them that you essentially have more in common with white folks and, you know, the GOP than you do other low-income communities of the Democratic Party. You can thank Texas for really trying to initiate that with crazy ass shit like involuntary racism, right? Then it gets even crazier because what happened to Chris, what you, Ray, and Charles, and everyone else came to the defense to, is essentially the strategy that I've seen the GOP use for years now, that Hannity uses, and that broke ass Tucker Carlson guy uses all the time, which is blame you for the very thing that they're doing. Blame you. Let's call you a racist, Ray. Let's call Chris a racist. Let's deflect the conversation, put you guys on the defense so that you are having to defend yourself from the very thing that they are doing. And you've seen it now. It's happening. Everyone, ladies and gentlemen, the Supreme Court just passed monumental cases to allow prayer in school. And I think Ray called it out because the first thing that I noticed was like, yo, man, if they were out there in the middle of the field praying to Allah, like, how would that go over?
Right.
If they were out there,
you know how that would go over.
Yahweh, how would that go over? Like, if I go out there and I'd be like, listen, man, like, I'm not Muslim, but like, I'm out there and I'm a religious equity guy. And I'm like, yo, man, praise Allah. Like, I'd have all of them people exit the Cracker Barrel and come shoot me in the ass multiple times. Because now the Supreme Court allowed guns to be held by fucking everybody. So now that everyone can carry guns, but you can't praise Allah in the middle of the field, crazy, I'm going to get shot. I'm in the middle of Florida right now drinking a hard Mountain Dew, and this ain't the 17th craziest thing that's happened today from what I've read. A liquored up Mountain Dew is not even in the top 20 crazy-ass things that I've heard happening in the United States today. So, like, I give all the love and peace to Ray and Chris and everybody because, listen, if anyone is not paying attention, the right wing is absolutely trying to destroy your critical thought. It is brainwashing. Then what they do is blame us. It's like, oh, that CRT is brainwashing. Trying to teach kids that slavery happened is brainwashing. Trying to teach kids the truth about the United States is brainwashing. Trying to convince anybody in the United States that we're not a God-loving, Christian-loving, slavery was just kind of a mild inconvenience in the history of the United States. Look, history was around. I mean, slavery was around since like the 1600s. Or in 2020, we haven't gotten to the place in the United States history where there's been more time without slavery than there has been with slavery. Think about that for a minute.
Hey, you're absolutely right. But I want to push you because some of your Latino brothers and sisters are eating this shit up, right? Because they want to be white adjacent, right? And they're eating this shit up in terms of coming to my party, the Grand Old Party. And what do you have to say to them?
I love the GOP, man. I mean, listen, it's a hard fought battle, and David knows this as well because we have this conversation all the time. So, like I always mention, I love my uncle Raul. I love him to death. He's one of my favorite people on the planet. But like, it's the Uncle Raul syndrome, and he's like, "Hey, bro," his words, "these wetbacks, bro, they come over here, bro. They take all our shit, bro." And I'm like, Uncle Raul, you literally live off of the government. You're a veteran and work for the school system. Every single paycheck that you've ever received in the entirety of your life has come from the government. Meanwhile, these quote wetbacks, as you call my parents and your grandparents, because let's be clear, like, they came over the legal way. No, they did not. They came over, and 20 years later, they got legally naturalized citizens.
Yeah.
But like, they no mistake. So my message to folks like my Uncle Raul and folks like in the Rio Grande Valley isn't a message for them, Ray. It's not. What the hell am I going to tell them? The message is first to the Republican Party being like, "Hey, man, good job. You have won the messaging game. You figured it out. And y'all are winning this game." My message isn't for the Rio Grande Valley Latinos. My message is for Chuck Schumer and the rest of this broke-ass Democratic installation of leadership.
Let's go.
Saying you've been playing defense for 30 years, haven't been playing offense, and now you're losing your ass. And then you are so ingrained in this idiotic cultural war bullshit about like worrying about pronouns and everything else instead of worrying about how are we going to get our messaging back so we don't lose our ass in the next 20 elections.
Absolutely.
Look at what's going on. My message is to every single Democratic person being like, you were completely like just devoid of any thought, just vapid in your thinking when you didn't spend any time thinking about how that you're going to send your messaging and putting your messaging around insipid cultural wars instead of being like, oh my God, Trump just installed 3 justices that are all from the Federalist Society. And for folks on our call, the Federalist Society is a grooming ground. So you know how the Republicans say, oh, you're grooming. Republicans are groomers. And what they did was groom a bunch of justices within an organization called the Federalist Society to be hyper right, not care about the Constitution, only care about conservative values. So yeah, Ray, like my message ain't really to like my Latinos brothers and sisters. My message is to the AOCs and the Democratic Party being like, man, you better get your shit together. Otherwise,
bro,
that court ain't going to be 6-3.
Notice what y'all's president did, right? So when it came down to voting rights, right?
Who y'all's president? Who are you talking about?
Yeah.
Ray is absolutely a Republican. Continue.
Okay.
So notice what y'all's president did, right? So when it came down to voting rights, he was like, "Oh no filibuster, right? No, none whatsoever." But when it came down to codifying Roe, he was like, "Yeah, filibuster, right?" And think about like, even though, you know, the right to abortion, I feel like every woman should have a right to a choice in terms of like what they make. Let's be clear about that, right? And abortion to me is healthcare, right? And so, and it disproportionately impacts Black and brown women the most. But voting rights absolutely impacts Black people, and he didn't give a shit about that. He was like, well, you know, what can you do?
Yeah,
So
man. And you know why?
Well, so here's what I think. So one, I'm very happy for you, Omar, and I'm very happy for you, especially when Ray comes on, because we let you go. We just let you like we be like the sponsors, Omar. You be like, oh my bad. But I feel freedom for you. I feel
no, man. Today is no sponsored show sponsored by Mountain Dew Hard.
Yeah.
You want to drink something that's going to disintegrate your intestines.
I'm gonna go down to the local store and get a Four Loko. I don't think they sell that.
They're illegal now.
Four Loko.
Four Loko is illegal now. Four Loko is illegal now.
Drink that kid was forced to drink in house party. that the man
You
passed
took
out
eight
to.
local. That's
Almost
8
passed out in
local.
20 minutes.
Yeah.
Where he was
Bro.
dancing and then passed out. But here's the thing. Here's the thing about today, right? So again, to the people that's listening, and we love to give you all insider baseball, but these are your education cousins talking to you right now. I know you're probably saying, okay, what is my role? What can I do in this? So part of this is we want you to be aware. We want to show you, okay, it didn't start and end with Roe. It's not starting and ending with, oh, we wanted to change what they call slaves and talk about them being happy and voluntarily moved and all whatever the case is. It isn't about like, we don't just because we might agree that the sky is blue, like we might agree that people deserve choice in their education, does not mean we are the same and that we are alike. And what these right-wing people are doing and trying to do is they're trying to win this culture war by any means necessary. And Democratic leadership has been soft and sorry and trying to look a certain type of way as opposed to getting the wins that they need. And now it's about to be some midterm elections. That's about to be a bloodbath for the party that three of us tend to have next to our name. So what I will say is, what is
It's going to be? It's about to be 2. It's about to be 2.
It's about to be 2. Oh, you're David. You out of here, huh?
I'm going independent. I think, man. I'm out.
I mean,
I don't know if I can
it's
do
crazy.
This.
I think it's crazy, and y'all know. And David, you know my work personally around when I was working in the Democratic Party and leading stuff there. And part of the reason I left the work, I didn't leave Democrat fully, but I did leave the work because every time I tried to bring up Black issues, I was always rebuffed. And I think this has been part of that issue. These people are not counting our votes as valuable because they think that is a foregone conclusion. And I think that that's tough. What we need to have happen today, though, whether it's Chris, whether it's Ray, whether it's David, whether it's Charles, whether it's Omar, whether it's whomever, whether it's the people that Ray support on his other shows who are also awesome people, or it's just somebody doing great work and has a freedom of thought around education, is Black and brown, understanding that they are coming for us as a collective and what they are banking on and what some of these people are banking on. And Omar talked about it. And I'll lean on it, but I don't dive into it with David and Omar because it's better for them to be this messenger. Is they are counting on the brown population to do what the Irish did, to do what the Italians did, to say, I want to be a part of this whiteness. I will fully integrate into this and we can make a trade. And that's what Omar is referring to around, like, a lot of people that lead that just a lot of anti-brown stuff is brown people. It is people that said, I got here a certain way and I don't want you here. You know what I'm saying? I don't want you to be here. But they will try to divide and conquer us. And if they do, they will pick us off one by one and you will wake up and all of the freedoms, all of the free think that you had, all of the critical thinking that we're trying to get into these schools, all of the ethnic studies work that we're trying to do, you will wake up one day and it will be gone. You will wake up one day and they will have you thinking that Ray is the enemy. They will have you thinking that Chris Stewart is the enemy. They will have you thinking that Charles Cole, that Omar, that David is the enemy, when we are saying, no, you deserve a better education. And what they will tell us is, no, you deserve an America First education. You deserve, like, this is the nation and this is what you got to protect. So we can't have you talking about abortion because that makes us look bad. We can't have you talking about slavery because that makes us look bad and we lose our moral high ground. We can't have you talking about, well, okay, we don't believe in mixing church and state unless it's Christian. And guess what? I'm Christian. But I also knew that was a whole fluff. As far as what they're trying to get to, because they were advocating for Christian rights. So all I'm saying is I appreciate where we are, but to the people that is listening, we need you to critically think. We need you to sit down and have conversations with your kids. We told you last week, when this decision came out, sit with your kids at dinner time and talk to them about Roe v. Wade. Talk to them about how this is impacting them. And I'm not even telling you how to feel about it, but what I'm telling you is you have to know this history when it is happening. You cannot keep talking about, I'm not my ancestors, I'm not this, and those people are dumb, and they should have had a backbone and this, that, and the third, because you are in one of those moments. In 20 years, what has been happening in the past few weeks will be in history books. Where were you? What did grandma and grandpa do? What did mom and dad do when this came in their face? And I appreciate Ray and I appreciate Chris for speaking truth to power and standing in those faces the same way I've seen Omar do and the same way I've seen David do since I was a cub in this work. So thank you, gentlemen.
Of course.
Wow, where do we go from there? Yeah, I mean, I think so. We'll go into closing thoughts. Thank you, Charles, for that. And I think going back to Ray's earlier comments and all of our comments, it's like this chicken or the egg debate, right? Like we have this thing happening right now. We have this movement happening. They're working their way through our federal systems, our state systems, our local systems. Launching personal attacks on particular individuals that are fighting for justice. And I think for many people, it can be very hard to decipher and understand like where it's coming from, what's going on, what are the dynamics, what is the history behind it. Thinking specifically about younger people, and it all ties back to being able to have access to a high quality education that teaches critical thinking, right? So for our Black and brown children, for our Black and brown communities, unfortunately, we can look at literacy, and literacy will tell you a whole lot. If you can't read, then you're not going to be able to make sense of so much. If you never learn to read or learn to read well, you're never going to be able to read to learn, right? And therefore, we have a large demographic of Black and brown people that maybe are not like technically illiterate, but that perhaps lack the skills to be able to interpret the dynamics that are at play here. And so I'm going to double down on the importance of education, not just K-12, but also like higher ed. This movement of like, we don't need to go to college. Bill Gates didn't go to college. Whoever else didn't go to college. I'm like, our Black and brown children need to go to college, right? We need to build a generation of thinkers, of critical thinkers, of leaders to help us push back against what we're seeing right now. And without education, and that's why we're here on this podcast, it makes it very difficult to do that. And people get sucked into the news cycle, the algorithms, and I forget who was talking about their uncle, and it's hard. And so, I think at the end of the day, it all comes down to education, and for us to be able to make meaning of what's happening in the world around us. I didn't understand it truly, growing up, until, with the combination of my home education, with what my mother and father, my family taught me, and then my formal education or my informal education in college, right? I was able to make these connections, and I can better understand the world around me and make meaning of it, make decisions, vote for people, understand issues. And so I feel like we're at this critical point where it's essentially the same thing. We have to continue to fight for high quality education options for our Black and brown kids. I mean, that's basically where we started. And I'll continue to stay rooted in that. So that we got about a couple minutes left for closing thoughts. We'll just do one quick round and we'll wrap it up. Last thing I'll say is I appreciate you, Ray, for being here. I'm sure you had a busy week, a busy year. So really appreciate you joining us, especially after the shenanigans of this week. But just know that we're here to support you, publicly, privately, whatever you need. I'm here, we're here. And so we got your back.
Appreciate you.
Yep. Charles, you want to offer closing thoughts?
Yeah. I kind of basically gave mine, man. I think you kind of summed it up. Thank you all for being here. Thank you to our Roku family, our Facebook family, our YouTube family. We've appreciated the support. We've appreciated the growth. And we need you have a voice and you can speak up during these times. Like, let people know that they have you and you have their back. Because again, feeling alone in this work can be very, very tough. And I'm glad Ray was very transparent about the level of depression that caused him because he felt by himself. Well, it sounds like between the Black Hands family, between the 3 Times Dope, between Freedom Friday, between all the other things just that we do in general, you don't have to be alone, and you have a village. So keep leading the way God has bestowed upon you. And we hope that the people that's listening will continue to fight as well.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Omar?
Yeah, man. I just want to first thank all our listeners and the Roku Nation. Thank you so much. Remind everybody that we are a consultancy firm. So if you need any support, we are happy to help. Thank Ray. It's always awesome having Ray on the show. Ray, it just sounds like you just want to be invited to the party. You want to be invited to the podcast party. that party. And I'm just like, yeah, man, like, and we have a great time every time you're here. So I don't see why not. But Ray, you're gonna have to drink one of them Mountain Dew Hard. Man. That's your initiation. This is like fat initiation. You're gonna have to drink it. Otherwise, man, hey man, listen, you haven't proved your fealty to the team if you don't drink this Mountain Dew Hard. I don't
Did you say
suggest it.
fancy?
I think my insides. That's right. That's correct. I do not think my insides may or may not exist after this podcast after drinking this. I think they all
Listen, man, and whoever didn't get that reference, and you need to go watch John Wick immediately. That was a beautiful reference, brother. I appreciate it.
There you go. All right, Mr. Ankrum.
So,
Mr. Ankrum.
just a big thanks.
Yeah. So I too want to shout out the Roku Nation. I also want to shout out whoever's behind the scenes making these graphics and doing these intros and doing all this other stuff, man. We real bootleg on 3 Times Dope, but we're gonna get there though. And just shout out to y'all, man. Shout out for y'all creating this community for me to come and feel welcomed or whatever whenever I come. And love to see how you guys are growing. Love to see how this consultancy is transforming the lives of students and families across the nation. And it's just a pleasure for me to be here, man. I thank you guys for inviting me.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, with that, I want to thank all of our listeners for tuning in to the South Star Classroom. We'll be back next Friday. And we'll continue to be here every week talking about Black and brown children that have been furthest from opportunity in and around education. And we're not going to stop, and we're going to build alliances. We're going to build support networks, and we're just going to continue to build what we have going on. Because our children matter and they get one chance at it. And so we're here to help support our children, our teachers, our school leaders, our board leaders, everybody. So thank you very much. Everybody have a safe weekend, especially Omar.
And David, you produced the hell out of a show. Let's clap it up for David. That's everybody in the nation.
Yeah, David, man.
Produced the hell out of a show, man. He's been killing it. Peace out.